So I went on a little holiday to the US, Austin, Texas to be exact, and I decided to make this video about some of the highlights, because I recorded some footage with my phone, and I'd like to think I was being very productive. Now, this was my first time going to the US. I'm Dutch, for those who still don't know. It's that tiny country just to the west of Germany. No, not that one. That one doesn't want to be part of the club anymore. That one. Aside from bicycles, tulips, windmills, and clumps, we also have delicacies such as vla and stroopwafels. But I digress. So to get to the US, I first had to prove that I was not a terrorist and I wasn't planning on committing any genocides in the near future. But after that, it was a home stretch. Well, aside from flying there. That was actually pretty time consuming. I booked a flight through Turkish Airlines because that was by far the cheapest airline I could find. And with Turkish Airlines, you got a free layover at Atatürk Airport in Istanbul. So mere 2 days before my first layover there was that terror attack. Some guy blew himself up near the front entrance. But they resumed the flight schedule pretty soon after, so my flight was fortunately not affected. So after an intense journey across the Atlantic, I arrived in Austin for the last 2 days of RTX, the Rooster Teeth Expo. Because why the hell not? So for those who don't know, RTX is a video game convention hosted by Rooster Teeth. Those guys that did Red vs. Blue and a bunch of other things at this point. So I picked up my badge and walked across the floor for a bit, and I stumbled upon the Twitch section. And I got into the VIP lounge. I'd like to think it's because I'm a Twitch partner and they think I'm really super important, which would make me feel special, but it was primarily because I recognized the Twitch username of one of the guys that was working there. Full1Tian, or Voltian. I still don't know actually. But he used to make Tribes Ascent tutorials a long time ago. But instead of pursuing a lucrative YouTube career, he decided to work at Twitch instead. But anyways, the Twitch VIP lounge contained delicacies such as cookies, iced tea, coffee, and some cakes. Also fruit, which I didn't actually try. It was pretty much my place to go in case I got hungry. So thanks Twitch for saving me money on buying lunch. And while I was there, I decided to try out some fancy DX Razer chairs. Because seemingly everybody in the world is sponsored by DX Razer. So I sat in one and they're pretty comfy, but probably not really worth the money. I actually don't know what they cost, but they seem pretty expensive because they look so fancy. I'm just gonna stick with my IKEA's Marcus chair. Now, I'd like to think that's how you pronounce Marcus in Swedish. Probably not though. But if you do want to sponsor me IKEA, you know, I'm sitting right here in my Marcus chair, very comfortably. I experienced VR2, the HTC Vive, which seems to be the go-to VR thing. And there was this Alienware truck booth with some demos, a bow and arrow tower defense game, and a futuristic wave defense game with lasers and shields. Up until that point, looking at VR footage, I wasn't really convinced. It looks kinda clumsy and it kinda makes you look like an idiot. I mean, look at that fucking idiot right there. But trying it out for myself, I got to say it's quite the experience. As soon as you put on those oversized glasses on your face, along with some noise-canceling headphones, it's like you're actually in the game. I also partook in a push-up competition. You know, you had to do 40 push-ups in under 2 minutes to win a random free Steam game. So the first time around I got stuck at 39, then I went back a second time and actually did the 40 to get the free game, but primarily to show off. And I also went back a third time to show off even more, but I still haven't received that email with a game code, so I'm pretty fucking sure they scammed me. And that was pretty much my RTX, so I had fun, but there is a lot of line waiting. And for some of the panels there is hours upon hours of line waiting, which I really don't feel is worth it, unless you really want to be part of a noisy crowd. But this trip was not just about RTX. Since the plane tickets were so damn expensive, even with Turkish Airlines, I decided to stay in Austin for some time after, to check things out. Now, because I'm Dutch, I rented a bicycle, the cheapest one I could find. It was a really shitty bicycle. But you know, I had to rent one because I didn't want to get any withdrawals while I was there. In retrospect though, it was actually a pretty shit idea because in Texas you end up sweating your balls off. I didn't actually know it was that humid in Austin and Houston, but it is really fucking humid there. So a nice big air-conditioned SUV would have definitely been preferable, but oh well. So one of my first activities, aside from RTX, was trying out indoor skydiving, because why the hell not? Basically it's a gigantic fan that lifts you up and it's almost like you're really skydiving. So I did that, and they were nice enough to give me some GoPro footage, so my instructor there, Josh, said I did pretty well for the first time. I honestly don't know whether or not he says that to everyone, but he told me that most first-timers like spin around like idiots, so I'd like to think I was really good at it. But the instructors there can fly around like very delicate birds, going where they want, and I was just sort of floating there, spinning around. I felt like a slightly uncomfortable flying squirrel. But I talked to Josh for a bit more, and he told me that the instructors can actually show up there when the place is not open and fly around for free. And they can also take their friends with them. So it sounds like I need better friends. But yeah, it's pretty cool, but it's pretty expensive for the amount of flight time you get. And since I was in Texas, I decided to also shoot some guns. Now I shot guns on 2 occasions, once indoors and once outdoors. It's actually pretty interesting to a European, because you just walk into a gun store, you point at a rental gun and you say that one, and then the guy talks to you for a bit, make sure you're not crazy, and then you pretty much just get to shoot it. So I was there with another guy, and we first tried the Glock 19 Gen 3. Now the rental guy briefly explained the thumb over thumb grip technique for a pistol, but I couldn't quite remember how to do it when I actually had the gun in my hands, so for the indoor shooting footage, I'm holding the pistols sort of improperly, but I actually know how to do it now. Anyways, the 9mm doesn't really have too much kick, but the one thing about the Gen 3 Glock is that since I'm a lefty, I keep hitting the mag release button with my index finger, so that's kind of annoying. After that though, we stepped up our game. We went to the good old M1911, 45 ACP and a load of metal. This thing has a bit more kick, but it's pretty manageable, and it just feels good having a solid piece of metal in your hand. Some good old American engineering. After that though, we decided to step up our game even further. We went with the AR-15 with a little red dot on top. This thing actually had a tad bit more kick than I was expecting. I'd seen some guy fire this thing with his nose, so I was expecting a gentle nudge against my shoulders, but instead I got tiny kicks. After the AR-15 though, we had to go for a big boy gun, so we went with the M14. Now, firing this thing was actually kind of a pain. I was wearing sunglasses indoors like a douchebag instead of the provided safety goggles, because I wanted to look really cool. Now, the thing about this M14 is that it has a very tiny rear sight, which makes finding the bunny ears rather difficult. But yeah, this thing kicked a tad bit more, it actually sort of pushes you back, and firing this thing is rather expensive. It's like $1 per round. The guy I was with also wanted to try out the Beretta, which is another 9mm pistol. After the big boy gun, this was no big deal. I was seasoned. The second time around shooting though, I shot a little Ruger SR22 pistol, then a Glock 19 Gen 4 with a fancy flashlight, and with this gun I was not having that mag release button issue, so I prefer the Glock Gen 4 I think. But also a Remington 870 shotgun with some buckshot. This thing had a fair amount of kick actually. And lastly, another AR-15 with some red electrical red tiger camo. So yeah, if I lived in the US, I'd probably take shooting up as a hobby. It's pretty enjoyable, but over in Europe, it's too much of a hassle to shoot much of anything significant, and BBs don't quite do it for me anymore. So I'll probably just stick to firing virtual weapons. Later on, I did a Scientology personality test, just for shits and giggles. Unfortunately, it was a 200 question long test, which I hadn't really counted on. And the lady there, Barbara, kept yammering on about circles or some shit like that. I know, Scientology is very adamant about circles, apparently. But yeah, I'm not entirely convinced by the circles yet, so I'm gonna pass on Scientology, I think. There was also a 4th of July celebration, which was pretty packed, but I found the fireworks to be kinda disappointing. I was expecting some very patriotic American fireworks, like a flag, but it was all imported from China. I went to 6th Street on 2 occasions, which apparently is the place to go in Austin at night, although I may or may not be slightly underage, allegedly, so I allegedly had to use this other guy's driver's license to allegedly get into the bars, but I could actually get into every bar, allegedly. The bouncers don't really even look at the picture, they just sort of flex the card to make sure that it's not too fake. There was just this one bar where the guy actually looked at the picture and then back at my face and then back at the picture, and he decided that I looked nothing like the guy in the picture. But all he made me do was just stand on one leg for 10 seconds to see whether or not I was too intoxicated. And after that, I was good to go. So yeah, that was an interesting experience, but don't do drugs. They're bad for you, allegedly. During my stay, I tried out the American fast food with the supersized sodas and unlimited refills. I could feel the cholesterol clogging my arteries just thinking back at it. But I didn't really go for the refills too much, partly because I didn't actually know about unlimited refills until about halfway through, but mainly because with most cups I already had an ungodly amount of soda seeping into my body, so I was quite good on the hydration there. On one occasion I went on a little adventure to Walmart, because I just had to see it for myself. And this particular Walmart had a McDonald's built into it, because traversing such a vast place makes your tummy rumble, so it's only logical. And while I was there, I bought some typical American goodies. An American flag because I was feeling patriotic, and some Twinkies, which I have to say are pretty fucking disgusting. Later on I also tried out some Twizzlers, which were even worse. As an aspiring engineer, I also investigated the American engineering, and some of it is rather questionable. Lots of gigantic thread and nuts, just lots of nuts everywhere. But the biggest highlight has got to be the free 7-Eleven Slurpee I got. It was pretty delicious. I could definitely go for another free 7-Eleven Slurpee. But yeah, those were the highlights of my little Austin adventures, so I had a good time while being there. As I said, it was my first time going out to the US, so I could finally see all these things for myself. I'll probably go back at some point, but flying out there is rather expensive compared to most of the European city trips I've done before. You just can't beat Ryanair. So yeah, flying out to the US, I had that first layover at Atatürk Airport, and I dodged that terror attack as I mentioned by a mere 2 days. While flying back to the Netherlands from Houston, I had another layover at Atatürk Airport. And this was an even closer call. I missed that attempted coup d'etat by a mere 4 hours. Interestingly enough, I was originally planning to stay for 1 day longer, but the flight ticket price changed, so I decided to stay 1 day shorter. And it turns out that was the good call right there, because otherwise I probably would have been stuck in Houston or something along those lines. So man, that's a life experience right there, dodging a coup d'etat by 4 hours. Also, somewhat related, I was thinking of buying a GoPro, which would allow me to film more easily, as well as more outdoorsy type activities. So I might make some more videos like this, not really vlogs, but more like video diaries. Diaries. And that just rolls right off the tongue. But I might also push that off to a more private channel. I'm not too sure yet. I just kinda wanna get a GoPro though. Those things are pretty cool. But yeah, in the place I was staying at, I met this pretty cool and chill guy. He was working there while on holiday, coding things with PowerShell, which I didn't even know existed, but he was very adamant about PowerShell. So we talked about coding for a bit, and he mentioned that he uses his knowledge to make his life easier. Now one of the things he does is use scripts and VPNs in order to filter Occupit to get only a selection of the real cuties, which I thought was pretty hilarious. But he mentioned that he had a friend that works on the GoPro firmware, so I'm gonna try and see whether or not that guy can hook me up with a free GoPro, or maybe just a discount. It's probably not gonna work because I don't have that much sway, because I'm not important enough, but it's worth a try. Anyways, that was pretty much that, so I will see you in the future.